Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to another edition of Dark Power, where we talk about everything that happens on AEW Dark Elevation and NWA Powerrr. This week's episode of Power was a Power Surge episode, and it was a little interesting, a little intriguing to say the least. But we had some great matches on AEW Dark and Dark Elevation to talk about. So, guys, let's get into it. Alrighty, guys, there's a lot to talk about, but before we do, we want to say thank you for all the likes, comments, shares, subscribes that you guys give to us. We appreciate all of the support. Consider joining our Patreon. $3 is the entry-level tier, and I believe by the time that this episode goes up, our Pro Wrestling Tees shop will be back up and running, so you guys can pick up one of our PWT shirts at your earliest convenience. And at your earliest convenience is kind of what we need to talk about when it comes to this first match. This one was a nice tag match between Trent Beretta, Rocky Romero, Roppongi Vice versus Camarado and Aaron Solo of the Factory. And why I say earliest convenience, it's because throughout the course of this match, Beretta is working to build up the hot tag for Rocky Romero, and at his earliest convenience, he needs to get that tag in to get Rocky in. It was a good match, did a good job. Roppongi picks up the win as they should. Overall, some good action. No real crazy story to this match. I thought it was kind of interesting that it was Trent who was building up the hot tag for Rocky, not the other way around. But other than that, solid work. Can't complain. And if Dark Elevation started the tag team matches going, then Dark continued that streak with two really, really solid tag matches, starting us off with the Dark Order's Evil Uno and Stu Grayson versus Team Taz's Powerhouse Hobbs and Ricky Starks. Man, this one was pretty physical, I got to say. Pretty physical. And the two teams went solidly back and forth. It's always great when we get ranked contracted people versus ranked contracted people, right? That's something we don't always see that often on Dark and Elevation. And when we do, we got to take time to shout it out and take time to appreciate it. That's exactly what we're doing here, because these are two teams that, Starks and Hobbs, as much as they have teamed recently, aren't normally in the tag team division. I wonder if that's something that's going to change for them. And we have Uno and Grayson, who are kind of tag team stalwarts, kind of have had stop and starts throughout their tenure at AEW, but they've done great work and they continue to do great work here. Now, if we're talking about physicality, the next match we got to talk about is really, really good. And that is when the Factory, Aaron Solo and Nick Camarado, fresh off their loss on Elevation that we just talked about, are now going up against Shane Strickland and Keith Lee. And my goodness, this one definitely hit hard. Both of these tag matches went over 8 minutes, and they earned every single moment of them. There's some great spots. We have early on in the match, Camarado saying, "I want Lee," making sure that Strickland tags Lee into the match. Overall, I liked a lot about this match because Keith Lee just brings something to the table. It's really cool to hear the crowds cheering for him, the pops that he gets. But what I like about it is that pairing him with Strickland has been easing him into the situation of what is AEW. And I think that he still has some health issues. I still think that he's trying to lose some weight, get a little bit more of the agility back. But whatever the case may be, pairing him with someone like Strickland, who has the flash, has the pizzazz, has that speed and agility, is really cool. And that's not to say that Keith Lee doesn't, But having him in a tag match like this allows him to have the rest that he needs while still making appearances for people in the audience and for us, the viewing public at home. So well done. And I got to say, Camarado and Solo, I didn't talk about them too much the previous match. They are two shining examples of what AEW Dark and Elevation are supposed to be. They're not straight up enhancement talent, but they are people that the wins can actually mean something because they themselves get wins over enhancement talent. And you get them going up against people like this and earlier on Elevation against Roppongi Vice that can start to build more and more of a resume for them when it comes to why should they slowly move up the card. And that's going to be something really cool to see. I know that there are a lot of contracts that are potentially not going to get extended, will get extended. Who knows exactly what the case may be when it comes to AEW. I hope that these are two guys who do get some contract extensions. They came on during the pandemic. They're getting a chance. They've shown that they can do some stuff. It's on AEW to build them. And whether that means taking them and transferring them to Ring of Honor, that's fine. But build who you've got, because these are two guys who could do some really great work for you down the road. But that brings us to talking about this week's episode of NWA. And man, this one, how do we describe this? Okay, so a couple weeks ago, we had an episode of Power Surge where it was hosted by the Fixers. This week, it is hosted by Velvet Sky, and we've been seeing this kind of, I don't know how exactly to describe it, but like this sexy, we'll call it, like a little bit more of the TNA, not beautiful people, but like the more alluring side of Velvet Sky, I guess we'll call it, coming out, a little bit of the hanging off of Fandango or Dirty Dango and JTG, and now we're getting a full-blown Velvet After Dark. It's, what you think of when you think of something After Dark. She's going to have different segments throughout this episode, which is a short one. It was only 36 minutes long, where she's just kind of talking to the camera, doing the whole, all that kind of late night nightclub lounge singer kind of routine. It sort of works. There's a little, it's a little too over the top, which I guess could be what they were going for. but I think overall it was all right. It worked. The matches that they had for this episode of Power Surge. Oh, and speaking of which, Dirty Dango and JTG will be there. The ending of the episode is going to have Awesome Idol, of course, show up and ruin the whole thing. There's going to be plenty of innuendos between Velvet and Dirty Sexy Boys, including insinuations that she wants a threesome. She likes pain when she has sex. She likes to get slammed. All kinds of different things, ladies and gentlemen. But let's talk about the matches, which were quick. One was about 3 minutes long. The second was about 3 minutes long. And the third was about 6 minutes long. But starting us off, we have just a super quick match between Scion and a guy named Garrison Creed. It goes about 3 minutes long, which is about 2 minutes longer than it needed to. It was basically a squash match, and it was just there so that Awesome Idol, who is on commentary, can dodge questions about the parentage reveal. Cool. The second match is between Paola Blaze and Tootie Lynn. This one had a little bit more of a story, with Paola trying to get the upper hand. The upper hand on Tootie throughout the course of this match. She is going to get a pin by getting her feet on the ropes. Ref doesn't see it. No harm, no foul, I guess, unless you're Tootie Lynn. But hoping that we see a little bit more of Tootie Lynn and Paola Blaze, because Paola should be gearing up for something with Genocide, like a full-blown actual match. Same with Taryn and Genocide. So hopefully this is just something to, remind us that Paola Blaze can be a threat. And for Tootie Lynn, she seems to have been floundering ever since the NWA anniversary show and Empower. I'm hoping that there's a way for her to get back on track. Not exactly sure what that is. And we haven't seen her partner, Kylie Ray, in a very long time. hoping that everything is okay there. And that leads us to our main event, which is Idolmania Sports Management taking on the Rude Dudes. This match, I kind of like this one. It had some good fast-paced action throughout. It's nowhere near as good as the two tag matches we were just talking about from Dark, but it got the job done, and it just felt like a filler match for Power Surge, which is basically what it was. But what I liked about it was that it's actually kind of funny. We have some parallels. Is that you would think that Black G's is supposed to be getting his ass handed to him to build up the hot tag from Rush Rocket, and they play it straight. They do what they're supposed to do. And what's cool about it is that because of this, you get to see a little bit more of what makes Black G's kind of special in the ring. And he's not the greatest talent in the world at all. But what he does do pretty well. I will say that. He can move quickly. He's agile. He can bounce off the ropes really, really well. He's really good at counters, and it works well when you have two people who are much, much taller than him. Granted, he's already short to begin with, but when he's in there with somebody like a Sam Adonis, that height difference really works in his favor. So overall, a good job for everybody there. The episode of NWA is like many episodes of Power Surge. Not really necessary. Considering that last week we had an action-packed episode of Power, I think it would have made sense to spread them out a little bit, right? Like one of those matches, because those matches were allowed to go long last week, it could have easily been swapped with one of the Power Surge matches this week. However, I understand that tapings, are out of order and things like that, in the sense that this week's episode of Power Surge barely has a live crowd. I don't even think it really was a live crowd. There are people who are clapping and making noise and things like that, but you can't see them. So as far as I know, it's because if it's coming from behind hard cam, it could just be crew members who are standing there and are making enough noise. I think this is something that I've said before on previous episodes of of Dark Power, but I can understand how it would be jarring to be moving from one of those matches to one of the matches from last week to suddenly this kind of more empty arena kind of thing. And they didn't even bother to take down the chairs. So you can clearly see on the other side of the ring, empty chairs. It's like, guys, what are we doing here? So I think maybe a little bit better planning on, the idea of what should be filler matches or what should be down matches. And I think you would have had a better kind of just flow to the episode. But I understand also that the point of this episode is just to have those funny ass Velvet shit and those little skits or sketches in the background. So whatever. It's not. I'm not gonna stress out too much about what Power is doing when it comes to their planning and their scheduling, and neither should you. So, guys, I want to thank you once again for tuning in. We appreciate all the support. Like I said earlier, remember to hit that like button, comment, share, subscribe. Check out the Pro Wrestling Tees store. And until next time,